the first thing to understand is there's probably two primary areas of legal risk for agencies when it comes to integrating AI into your business operations or using it generatively to create deliverables for clients. There's what we consider to be the IP associated risks and who's responsible if there's some inadvertent infringement or violation of some other party's intellectual property based on our use of LLMs or AI platforms in general. And the second major area of risk for most agencies is confidentiality and data privacy, and how to make certain that the way you're prompting in the LLMs is not you dumping information or manipulating information that might either break a data privacy law or might breach some sort of representation of confidentiality that your agency has made to the client.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. Very excited for a legal edition of our podcast and to talk about all things legal when it comes to marketing and digital agencies. Have two great people here to talk about this. So the first is John Scott's one of our partners here at Anders, and he's actually really involved in the legal space. So John, why don't you say hi to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Sharon. I am a tax partner at Anders, and I also head up the VCFO niche for legal firms.
Yeah, so John's going to have a lot of probably more relevant questions than I have, because our guest today is Sharon Toerek, who's with Legal+Creative, and anyone that's in the agency space probably knows Sharon. She's definitely very involved and front and center with a lot of these conversations. And so Sharon, welcome to the show, and why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your background and about your firm?
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm the CEO and founder of Toerek Law. We do business in the agency world as Legal+Creative. And we are a law firm for independent agencies that focuses on really three main pillars of legal foundation for their businesses: IP law, contract development and negotiation, and marketing regulation compliance. And over the last couple years, AI risk management for agencies as well, which kind of affects all three of the other pillars in some way, shape, or form. And in my non-law firm running life, I am the host and the founder of the Innovative Agency podcast, which is an agency focused and innovation focused, but not legal, podcast for independent agency owners about all things future leaning in the agency world.
Yeah, so definitely our listeners should check that out. I think Jody's been on there once. I've never been invited. I don't think John's been invited, but I think Jody's been on there. But I'm sure that was a good episode, as are the rest of your episodes. But let's dive down the AI, because I know that's where a lot of the people are thinking about. So let's just start with that, especially since you think it hits all three buckets. So why don't you kind of talk about what your thoughts are and how agencies should be approaching the legal elements of AI?
I think the first thing to understand is there's probably two primary areas of legal risk for agencies when it comes to integrating AI into your business operations or using it generatively to create deliverables for clients. So there's what we consider to be the IP associated risks, and that can mean either how do we know who owns the end product, if anybody owns it? And secondly, who's responsible if there's some inadvertent infringement or violation of some other party's intellectual property based on our use of LLMs or AI platforms in general. Then the second major area of risk for most agencies is confidentiality and data privacy, and how to make certain that the way you're prompting in the LLMs is not you dumping information into them or manipulating information that might either break a data privacy law or might breach some sort of representation of confidentiality that your agency has made to the client in the relationship. So those are sort of two risk ladders, and most of them apply to most agency client relationships. And we focus most of our risk management work on some branch or another of one of those two things.
Are those privacy laws pretty standard across the state jurisdictions, or is there a model privacy law and then some nuances in various states?
No, not at all. I wish there were. There is no federal data privacy standard in the United States like there is for example, the European Union, which has GDPR, which as strict as it felt when it was being enacted, and it is, it is very exacting. At least it's a standard that everybody can cooperate with and understand the implications of. In the United States, data privacy is still a state regulated affair. And of course, we can play to the most conservative states in the union, which on privacy tend to be California and Massachusetts, believe it or not, and increasingly Texas and Tennessee. So marketers have to deal with potentially 50 different sets of data privacy rules, and um, each state has potential nuances to their rules. And so it's kind of one of those things where we're all aligned, small business, big business, tech companies, on the belief that probably one consistent standard would be easier for everybody to comply with than to try to play to potentially 50 different sets of laws.
So lots of landmines for these firms to look out for.
Well, yes, because not only are we playing to different state rules, but I think one major misperception agencies and marketers in general have is that, well, if our agency is not in that place, or if our client is not in that place, or we're not marketing to an audience in that part of the country, we don't need to worry about um, data privacy laws in some other part of the United States. And ultimately, it comes down to where is the customer? Where's the consumer? If you got somebody on your list, who lives in Texas and you're an Atlantic regional business doing digital marketing and you send them a message that violates Texas's laws, you're just as responsible. So I think there's misperceptions about how to apply them, when to apply them, and which laws to apply. So it's a technically difficult landscape to navigate through as a marketer. Um, and I think, will be regulated in the short term anyway. Similarly, we have some state specific rules about it. California and New York, in particular, have been kind of forward leaning in terms of regulating it, but there's no federal standard yet. The difference between AI and data privacy, though, is there's kind of this push pull between the federal government and the states regarding AI regulation, wherein the feds really don't want the states to touch it right now. They haven't regulated it themselves yet, and they're not sure how they're going to, but they don't want the states really getting too involved. And we didn't see sort of that same oversight when it came to regulating data privacy.
So it sounds like your strategy for that is you kind of have to, like you said, lean into the most conservative areas to make sure you're hitting that. If you're hitting that, you're hitting other areas. But how do you keep up with the changes in the regulations with all 50 states having to pay attention to it?
Yeah, it's regularly examining your website terms and conditions, your privacy policies, the details of the campaigns that you want to build for your clients as an agency, um, knowing and asking a lot of questions about where their audience is, really reviewing the data that you're dumping into these campaigns to make sure it's being tagged and sorted, and making sure that the provenance of the data is lawful in the first place. Agencies don't love doing this work because it's not sexy, but you really do have to ask your clients some questions about where their data came from. Did somebody put a fishbowl out at a trade show, or did somebody, heaven forbid, buy lists from third parties for people who never intended to get any messaging from your client? So you've got to ask some questions to put yourself in the best position to be compliant.
And then do you have to do, so obviously you're doing quality control as you release the product or release the website or the marketing campaign, but then you also have to do maintenance on it and making sure that what you release today might not be relevant or might not be compliant 6 months from now. So you have to not only review the current releases, but also the existing releases to make sure everything's not out of compliance.
Yeah, it is an ongoing exercise, and so there needs to be kind of a team sport, right? With your IT people, your legal and compliance people, your creative and strategy people. So make sure you're all, rowing in the same direction. And also, we're agency advocates at our firm. So it's our role to advocate for their interests in the relationship. So from our perspective, it's making certain that the contract language between they and their clients and the contract language between they and their vendors put the liability and responsibility in the appropriate places and have the appropriate liability limitations and things like that. Because a breach of a data privacy law could be very expensive, and there's not a lot of insurance coverage out there that is going to make whole if a claim occurs and the claim is successful. So it's something to definitely build a compliance program around. And that's one way. That's one, I think, example of legal preserving your top line as an agency because it's reducing your risk. There are other examples of just straight up using your legal foundation to improve your top line before you even think about the cost of compliance as well.
Are there any good war stories or litigations that have occurred recently that would exemplify the need for what you do? I'm quite sure that there's an attorney or firm out there that is hunting for cases where they can take this issue on. Is there anything that we would have heard about?
I don't know. I think we see the most activity when it comes to the digital space. Um, we're not litigators, so we don't litigate cases. But I do know that there's a bit of a cottage industry in terms of ADA website compliance claims. There is a cottage industry of copyright licensing enforcement, sort of mills, if you will, reaching out to folks who may have used imagery on sites without the appropriate licensing. More recently, we've seen these trap and trace claims out in California in particular, which is the result of placing pixels on your website that can capture certain consumer information when they visit your site. And there's actually an old wiretapping statute on the books in California that's sort of been dusted off and resurrected for putting these claims forward. So there's always a cottage industry of some sort of claim that involves some aspect of marketing. Um, those aren't new and they're fairly evergreen, even though the type of claim that we see in volume might change a little bit from time to time. What I think we're going to see, soon is third party IP infringement claims as a result of AI generated work product. And there's no good answer about to determine the way those are going to go because there's still a lot of litigation pending between the big copyright holders and the big AI platforms about how they're going to resolve this issue of can you use somebody else's copyrighted work to train your data sets as an LLM. And that's question A. Question B is who's responsible to the copyright holder if somebody infringes their copyright as a result of something that was generated out of an AI platform. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing people taking on those claims on behalf of the copyright owners because there really isn't much more recourse they have to actually find these infringers beyond the sorts of technology that the Gettys of the world are using to find out if you've put a photo on your website that you weren't allowed to use, for example.
So how do you navigate these unknown waters right now as a customer? Because it sounds like there's a lot of things I could be
You
doing as a
don't. I
marketing
mean,
company.
yeah,
Yeah, that like
you
6 years from
don't.
now, I could be in trouble for.
It's easier to plan for data privacy compliance risk
Yeah.
or FTC compliance risk in like an influencer campaign or a creator campaign than it is to plan for the legal risks associated with using generative AI or using AI to manipulate data or confidential information. Because there's just, the law is always going to follow the business and the technology. And we're not there yet when it comes to AI specific claims. So you really don't. But the short answer is, there are some breadcrumbs in some of these other areas, but we're just kind of watching to see what the use cases are going to look like and what the claims start to look like and shape up to be.
That's probably why it's important to have a lawyer and retainer, because you need to know when these things change so you can adapt quickly. And, like you said, maybe make adjustments. And maybe you have some images on 4 or 5 of the websites that are out there that you're going to need to take down immediately. So just to have that frequent check-in with an attorney just to make sure you understand the changes. So how often are you meeting with your ongoing clients to make sure that they're aware of all these changes?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think that as a benchmark, with as quickly as things are changing right now in some aspects of marketing, it's really smart to have check-ins with your legal team at least twice a year. And that might mean touching and refreshing your standard legal contracts, because those are your primary profit generating tools in your client relationship. So making sure that they have been adjusted to account for whatever protections you might need in the client relationships or any of your other relationships. Taking a look at your agency's habits and practices in terms of onboarding clients, in terms of working with independent contractors or 1099 freelancers, working with your vendors. I just think it's good health maintenance these days to check in at least twice a year. And most of our clients are in regular communication with us because we're pretty sticky with them, and they have sort of it might be a trickle some years, it might be a flood other years, but they have regular recurring reasons to reach out and ask questions. And that gives us a chance to automatically check in on their stuff. But if you haven't, for example, if you're an agency listening to this and you've not had your standard master service agreement or professional services agreement reviewed in a while, by which I mean like the last 12 months or so, if you don't know where your contracts are, or if you think you don't need one because you think you're the kind of agency that always signs the client's version of an agreement, you should be checking in with your advisor. And similarly, there's other corners of the law firm, or the agency, I should say, where a regular check-in. And I think agencies are good about this in terms of like their employment
Yeah.
stuff but they're not thinking about it in terms of the marketing and advertising specific legal issues that they face on a day-to-day basis.
So would you say as a whole, obviously for the marketing industry, I think AI has been one of the biggest changes we've seen probably in the last 30, 40 years. Would you say that's similar to the legal front where like your work is just way different in the type of work you're doing? Or is it just pretty similar? You're still reviewing contracts, you're still reviewing the product, or would you say this has been a pretty big change for what you do on a day-to-day basis of what you do with your customers, clients?
I don't think that the areas of the business of a agency, which is the client base that our law firm serves, have changed, materially, so that the kind of work that we have to do on a day-to-day basis is new or different. I mean, that's not true across the board, but what I do think that the introduction of AI has done is created expectations, or maybe hopes and dreams, I should say, on agencies' parts that using some of the AI tools um, in lieu of professional advice, and I'm sure this is true of accounting and consulting services as well. Um, it's a trash in, trash out situation, by which I mean um, most of them are using AI in ways that isn't resulting in time or cost savings yet, because the product that they're sending to us, just use an example, an AI generated contract with a request that, we kind of review it and give it a blessing or not a blessing. Well, we are a licensed professional services firm, and we've got to go through the same legal due diligence for every single document and every single question we receive, because that's our ethical and legal responsibility. So it's not saving, you any time or any money at this point. What AI used well can do is help your advisors save time by generating the right questions to ask them, by presenting some ideas um, about how you might attack a situation from a legal or business standpoint. And those are helpful to us because it helps us understand your thinking. It helps us understand the things that are your pressure points or that you lay awake worrying about. But we're not to the point yet where substituting out one for the other is going to put our clients in a good position. So I think that has been the biggest impact. Not so much that the work we do is different. We use AI every day, just to be clear. I'm we're not Luddites about it, but we're using it contextually in a way that helps us serve clients while we're discharging our professional responsibilities. And it's really akin to the situation any agency faces where the brands they work with and serve want AI induced savings or time efficiencies, but for work that's not going to get them to where they want to go or help them reach their business goals because it's not of the same quality or it doesn't employ the same amount of judgment or insight as a professionally generated work might.
Yeah, we've definitely seen clients come to us with some really cool reports. They're like, "Hey, look what I'm doing, look what I'm building," and then you see right away, well, that doesn't make sense. These numbers make, yeah, the reports look cool, but the numbers make no sense. And so I think it was really good what you said about like, you know, using AI to generate the right questions and ask the right questions and come more prepared. That's what I love about AI is it makes me more prepared for any conversation I'm in. It doesn't make me an expert, but it makes me prepared to at least speak the language, ask the right questions, and then have better questions. And so like those conversations get deeper a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I do.
The ethical use of AI should be to create the right use cases where you're trying to do the repeatable mundane tasks so that your professional staff can still fulfill their ethical responsibility, but move upstream to better serve the client. Now, the client has this expectation that you're utilizing AI and you're going to charge them less, when in reality, we're all in the same business, whether you're a digital agency or a professional service firm. You're providing value to the client and the client is going to pay for value. So we need to get to our agreements are fixed fee and say, hey, you've got this problem. I'm going to fix it with all my professional experience and all the tools that I have for this amount of money. And if the client sees the value, they're going to pay that and we can all get to this balance. But you can't take out the human element. You have to have that oversight and professional judgment. But there are certain things, and we're going to get there, where AI can help us be better professionals and help us be better marketers and digital ad agencies.
Yeah, I think applied ethically and responsibly um, to the work that a marketing agency does or a professional service firm does, it's allowing us to capitalize on our thinking, not our doing. And that is the blessing and that is the curse because agencies for many years have had a business model. Their legacy business model is to earn margin on the doing. Um, before it was before the doing was media commissions from media placements, which is mid-century Mad Men era revenue models where you could give the creative away for free because you were making so much money on the media commissions that it really didn't matter. And then we morphed into, okay, we're going to monetize the doing of the creative work, where we're giving the idea away, but executing the idea is how we earn our keep. Well, now we're in an era of we're not making our money by executing the ideas. We're back to monetizing our human insights, our human thinking, and ingenuity. And AI enters the equation to help us employ that in more ways and more quickly. It doesn't make it any less valuable. And so the financial investment certainly shouldn't be lower. You could make, I guess, a credible argument that it might help your investment stretch a little farther in terms of the implementation. But the model that we're all crashing into, wherein we earn money based upon the inventory of time we have or the amount of stuff we produce, whether it's tax returns or legal pleadings or marketing campaigns, is it's diminishing, and we that's the I think the biggest challenge for all of us as service firms, is our I'm here for it, honestly. I mean, my background is as an IP lawyer, and my passion point is rewarding, leveraging, and monetizing intellectual property. So for me, it's kind of a perfect storm and an opportunity to get back on that soapbox again on behalf of agencies. Because quite frankly, it's not exciting to talk about your intellectual property when you can make a lot of money with the doing and the making, but you're not going to be able to do that for much longer, in my view. So it's a change to our business models that requires thinking differently about how we generate value for our clients and therefore earn profit for ourselves, that enables us to keep our lights on and our people well paid and all the other things we want to achieve in business.
So what I hear
Yeah, I've
you
been
saying is that agencies that are going to thrive and survive have to be able to pivot and be nimble and open to changing.
I agree with that, and I think they're also going to have to be creative about how they define value and how they communicate the value to their clients. So it's a business model puzzle. It is a communications challenge, and it's a mindset. It's a mindset exercise for leadership in any agency, because this is not how a lot of successful agencies grew up, and so I think that that part of it is the biggest sea change, and it's probably one of the motivators for a lot of the M&A activity we are seeing in the
yeah.
agency world, which we didn't see 5 years ago amongst small agencies, as much as we're seeing now. I think it's some legacy owners just deciding that the new model is just not, it's a complete reinvention, really, of the business model. And so looking for other ways to monetize the business that they've built.
Yeah, I've been working in agencies for about 10 years and pretty heavily with agencies. And I feel like AI, I wouldn't say it's ended two debates, but it's quieted two debates. So the two debates that any event I went to were always value and fixed base pricing versus hourly billing. I think that debate has quieted a ton now with AI, because a lot of people are saying you have no choice but to go down that value or fixed base pricing now. So again, I don't hear as many debates around that. Of course, there's always the one or two people that are stubborn and not want to change, and maybe they'll be find a way to do it. But I think that debate is definitely quieted. And I think the other debate that is quieted is whether you're a generalist or a specialist, or when it comes to verticals. And I think that I've heard that debate quiet as well, because one of the ways to really add value as a consultant is to say, we know your industry inside and out, and that's why you should come with us, is because we're great consultants. And so I've seen that debate quiet a lot, as well as that people are really leaning into being a specialist for an industry or a specialist for a certain type of delivery, because then now that with AI, they have to bring expertise. They can't just say, hey, we'll build you a website. And it has to be very specific and very high level of what they're doing. Have you seen it on that side as well?
Yeah, I 100%. I mean, as we're sitting here having this conversation, we are on the tail end of conference season in the agency world, and every bit of thought leadership, out of all of the events that I attended over the last couple of months, and there were probably close to 8 of them, is that niching and specialization is more powerful than ever for an agency and probably most professional service firms as well, because it is a distinguishing point that not only enables you to sharpen and hone your point of view, but it going narrow and deep makes you a bigger fish in perhaps a smaller pond. But also, pattern recognition and the ability to really monetize your knowledge and your insights based upon all the time and energy you've spent learning a particular type of client or a particular type of skill, means premiums in fees, premiums in the ability to get the work done faster, all of it. And, I think also that it's an opportunity to develop the relationships that result in the referrals that keep your agency humming, as well as if you are known for something special. If you are a travel focused agency or a consumer packaged goods focused agency, you're going to meet the people and consultants that brand you that way in their minds, and they're going to think of you and you're going to be top of mind.
Yeah, they definitely go hand in hand. Vertical and value-based pricing go hand in hand, because if you are part of a vertical, you can easily state your value, is that, or at least that being one of your values, is that, I know your industry, I know the trends in your industry, I know people within your industry. So they definitely go hand in hand. I think that's a great thought. So
And you're
we
more
are,
findable. I mean, one of
yeah,
the big sea shifts with AI is our findability online, and AI is going to
yeah,
be used. It's going to be probably the exclusive means by which
B2B,
people who
yeah,
are looking for the expertise we have are going to find us, and it's easier to be findable via GEO or AEO if you are known for something specialized or niched.
agreed. Awesome. So we are at the end of our time here. So I think there's a lot of good information, and I appreciate the conversations. And I think that you brought a very unique mindset to a lot of the stuff that we talk about on this show. So appreciate you coming on. But one of the things we like to end every podcast with is a fun question, so everybody gets to know people that are on the show a little bit better. So before the show, we were talking a little bit about where we live. And so I want you guys to talk about where you live, and then just one fun fact, or one like nationally known fact about, or maybe a little known fact about where you live. So first off, obviously tell us where you currently reside, and then think of a fun fact about it. And Sharon, I'm going to start with you. So I want to talk about where you currently reside, and then also like a fun fact about the area.
I am a lifelong resident of the Cleveland, Ohio area. We are on the Great Lakes in northeastern Ohio. And a fun fact that a lot of people probably don't know about Cleveland is that the traffic light was invented here.
Oh, okay.
So you're the reason that Cleveland's the reason it takes me longer to get home, because of the traffic light. It's
You're
safer.
welcome.
It's safer.
You're
Where I
welcome.
live was probably the reason it was misused. I think where I live, the traffic light is misused more than anywhere else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we've all been there, right? We've all paid those
Yeah.
tickets.
All right, John, what about you?
I reside and was born in St. Louis, and we are home of toasted ravioli. I don't know if you've ever had that, but it's
Yeah.
just a deep fried ravioli. It's really good. And home of the St. Louis Cardinals. And with respect to traffic lights, in the city of St. Louis in particular, the second it turns red means that you finish going through the light. So if you're on the opposite side, you need to wait just a minute.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I wish I could say I'd never been there, but you know.
Yeah. I would say the same. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I wasn't born here, but I've lived here since I was 2, so close enough. But yeah, I'd say the red light running here is pretty crazy. You have to like look behind you if you're going to stop at a red light, more than you have to accelerate, because you never know when someone's going to hit you. But the fun fact about Colorado Springs, I think some people know, but I'm not sure everyone knows, is America the Beautiful was written here on top of Pikes Peak. So on top of the
Wow.
mountain, America Beautiful, which if you've ever seen Pikes Peak, it makes sense, because it's a beautiful mountain. You get lots of wonderful views up there. So I think it makes sense that America the Beautiful was composed up there. So that's the fun fact about Colorado Springs. Cool. So before we end, Sharon, how can people get hold of you, and tell them a little bit more about your podcast?
Well, thanks for the great discussion, first of all. A couple places folks can find me or learn more about the firm. Legalandcreative.com is us on the web. I'm very active in LinkedIn, Sharon Toerek, Toerek. And I'd love you to join us over on the Innovative Agency, which is our podcast for independent agencies, where we talk about innovation from all angles. We have agency owners and leaders on there. We have experts in technology, business development and sales, operations, you name it, but all kind of taking that look around the corner to where the industry is headed. It's not a legal podcast. So we would love for you to come check us out. We just hit episode 355. So we've been at
Wow.
it for a bit.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
And John, thank you to you for coming on and being a smarter, better, funnier Jody this week. So appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.